Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Extended. Chapter 2. A Complex Cleanup. When Harry returned to the Great Hall, still flushed from his walk with Ginny, he found a changed scene. Most of the debris had been cleared from the floor, and the bodies of the deceased had vanished. The teachers and members of the Order now sat at the Gryffindor house table, deep in discussion. When Harry and Ginny entered, they all looked at him. Something had changed in the way they perceived Harry. He had been used to lingering stares, the flicker of eyes upwards towards his scar. In his 6th year at Hogwarts, he had even grown accustomed to whispers of him being the chosen one. The expressions of the gathered adults, however, were different. In some faces he recognized reverence or admiration. In others, it was a mild fear, as if he had powers they did not understand. Only Hagrid's expression hadn't changed. His face still displayed the same pride and love it always had when he looked at Harry. Harry sighed. If only they knew how much luck had been involved in his vanquishing of Voldemort, how much had relied on pure chance. He resolved to set straight any false rumours of his Horcrux quest, and give due credit to everyone who helped him. There were many. Professor McGonagall stood up and approached him. "Miss Weasley," she said to Ginny, "why don't you join your family? I need to have a word with Mr. Potter." Harry reluctantly released Ginny's hand, and she continued to glance back at him as she sat next to her mother. Professor McGonagall began walking towards the entrance hall. Harry followed. "What happened to the bodies?" Harry asked. "They have been moved to the hospital wing," Professor McGonagall replied. "Madame Pomfrey is preparing them for the funeral, which will take place on the grounds in 2 days. Regarding the matter of where to bury them—" "They should be buried here," Harry interrupted. "At Hogwarts." Professor McGonagall nodded. "I arrived at the same conclusion, and I am glad you agree. However, it is their families, not us, who decide where they are laid to rest. I sent ours to their relatives last night, asking if they wish for their lost loved ones to remain at Hogwarts. All but one responded, giving their consent." She paused. "Other than his son, Remus Lupin had no living relatives, Potter. His son is too young to ask, so, since you are the next closest thing he has to family remaining, I leave the matter with you. I take it you would like him to be buried here too?" Harry nodded. Then he added, in a mutter, "Next to Tonks." "Of course," Professor McGonagall replied. She hesitated, clearly noticing that Harry needed a moment to compose himself. "I don't want to put you under any more pressure, Potter. You've done more than should ever have been asked of you. But you see, you'll be a symbol now, more than ever before. I think our fallen comrades' families would appreciate some words from you at the funeral." "I'll say something," Harry said without hesitation. "Thank you. And now, another question. What's next? For you, I mean." Harry began. He had not given the matter any thought. Whenever he closed his eyes, his mind still swam with memories of dead bodies lying in heaps around him. He knew he would be relying on Madame Pomfrey's dreamless sleep potions for days to come, staving off the inevitable point when the memories became nightmares. "I need to think about it," he finally said. "Until I figure it out, is it okay if I stay here, please?" Professor McGonagall gave him a small smile. "You are welcome to stay as long as you'd like. You will always have a home here." Harry returned her smile. You'll be good, Professor. As headmistress, I mean." She let loose a rare chuckle. "Thank you, Potter. That means a lot, coming from you. Now, would you care to sit in on our meeting? Among other things, we are discussing plans to repair the castle. It will take time to make it fit for students to return. We would value your input." Ron and Hermione returned then, and Harry waved them over. "I'd be happy to," he said. Hogwarts Castle, Professor McGonagall explained, was not a simple repair job. Not even 1,000 witches and wizards waving their wands as one and saying reparo could fix all the damage. The castle was created and held together by multiple layers of complex magic, laid down 1,000 years ago and added to ever since. It would take painstaking work to evaluate the original spells used and repeat them. When the question had been asked whether anything should be altered from its original state, everyone fell silent. Harry thought about it. He could not imagine any part of the castle he had seen, down to the smallest broom cupboard, being any other way. He wanted it to be as he remembered it again. Then an idea came to him and he grinned. "Some of the bathrooms could use an upgrade," he said, "especially Myrtle's, on the second floor." Mrs. Weasley turned twinkling eyes on him. "I agree," she said. Professor Slughorn cleared his throat. "If we are open to suggestions, I wouldn't mind a bigger office. Maybe we should remove the Chamber of Secrets, if we're changing things," Ginny said. "That will be considerably difficult," Professor Flitwick replied. "But not impossible," he added, when Ginny's shoulders slumped. "I agree that its presence should no longer be tolerated." Everyone began interjecting with ideas, and Professor McGonagall held up her hand. She conjured a roll of parchment and several quills, and lowered them to the table with her wand. "Please all write your suggestions here," she said. "I will discuss them with the Board of Governors and the Department of Magical Education. I will keep you all updated on what has been approved and rejected." She looked at George when she said the last part, obviously referring to his suggestion that Mr. Filch's office be shrunk to the size of a single filing cabinet. Once the meeting was over, Harry, Ron, Hermione, Ginny, George, Percy and Hagrid headed outside. The 7 of them walked towards Hagrid's hut. Hagrid told them he had found a new rock cake recipe he wanted them to try. "You're gonna love it," he said. And after a pause, he added, "Too bad about the Creevy boy, eh? So young. He was a good lad. Always looked up to you, Harry." Harry stiffened. He did not feel ready to discuss the individuals who had sacrificed their lives for the peace he now enjoyed. Suddenly he felt sick with guilt, that he lived on to stroll through the Hogwarts grounds and Colin Creevy did not. He did not answer, and Hagrid said no more. The funeral looked to be a grand affair, larger even than Dumbledore's. The families of everyone who had died in the battle were in attendance, along with many current and former students. Harry spotted Lee Jordan, who was staring at one of the bundles of cloth intensely, his eyes wide with shock. Dennis Creevy and his parents stood awkwardly to one side. Harry remembered Colin was Muggle-born, and then the blonde couple's awkwardness made sense. They would never have seen the castle before. Muggles were prevented from being able to find Hogwarts by various charms. Harry supposed they must have been lifted temporarily so the Creevys could attend their son's funeral. Witches and wizards continued to arrive, walking down from the castle in family clusters. Many of them beelined straight for Harry, wanting to shake his hand and thank him for finally vanquishing Voldemort. Some of them still referred to him as you-know-who. Harry wondered how long it would take before fear of the man passed. When everyone was settled in their seats, Professor McGonagall stood at the front behind a podium. She stared out at the crowd until the chatter died away, then cleared her throat and began speaking. "We gather here to honour our loved ones, who so nobly gave their lives in the service of all that is good. Their sacrifice has given us a chance to rebuild our world. While they fought to protect Hogwarts, their and our accomplishment is far further reaching. It is not this school, but what it represents, that inspired so many to stand. It is the freedom to choose one's own path, regardless of our blood. It is the idea, the vision, that wizard kind live in harmony with our muggle neighbours, with whom we share this world. Most importantly, it is the belief that truth and compassion and love will always triumph over evil. I invite you all to stand, to give thanks to our friends. She conjured a roll of parchment and unravelled it. As one, everyone present rose to their feet. Professor McGonagall continued. Lavender Brown, she began, reading from the parchment. As she said the name, Professor Flitwick waved his wand, and a body rose into the air, floating gently into an empty grave. Colin Creevey. Another body descended into the ground. The list went on, Professor McGonagall pausing between each name. When she reached Fred Weasley, a sob erupted from Mrs. Weasley. Harry turned away as Mr. Weasley pulled her tightly to him. Professor McGonagall waved her wand and the parchment vanished. She turned to Harry. I now invite Harry Potter, who fought alongside our departed friends, to speak. As Harry stood up and walked to the podium, she placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. Harry stared out at the mourning crowd, as nervous as he had ever been. He had practiced multiple times, even shared his thoughts with Ron, Hermione and Ginny. Everything he had prepared fled from his mind as he faced the hundreds looking at him. What could he possibly say to comfort them? They answered the call, he said. When it was time to fight and risk their lives, they didn't hesitate. They stayed when they could have run. Everyone who comes to this place in the future will know that we only won because they fought. We must never forget what they did for us. They're still here as long as we remember them. Dignified nods followed his words. And I'm still here, he muttered. He thought no one would hear him, but as Professor McGonagall returned to the podium, she looked at him with concern. Harry sat back in his seat and Ginny immediately took his hand. Professor Flitwick gave his wand one final flick, and mounds of earth covered each grave in turn. They formed neat lines in a cleared patch of ground. Next to them, Dumbledore's repaired marble grave glistened in the sunlight. The previous day, before it had been sealed once again, Harry had placed the Elder Wand in Dumbledore's hands. The wand would stay there for eternity, and the Deathly Hallows would be no more.